All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the strangest, most radical chapters in all of religious history. We're going to explore a secret faith, one born from centuries of crisis that decided to flip the very idea of morality completely on its head. So let's just start with the core question, the one that's at the heart of this whole story. What if everything you were ever taught about good and evil was just wrong? What if the only way to actually prove your faith was to break every single rule? It sounds crazy, but this one explosive idea managed to captivate over 1 million people. But how on earth could an idea like that take root? Well, to get it, we have to go back, way back. We need to look at centuries of real trauma that created this deep spiritual void, one that left an entire people desperate for an answer, any answer at all. You have to remember, Jerusalem was seen as the center of the world. And because of that, well, everybody wanted a piece of it. It was constantly being conquered. First the Babylonians, then the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, one after another. And each new empire brought more trauma. It created this relentless, never-ending cycle of destruction, exile, and instability for the Jewish people. And this trauma didn't just stay put. It followed them into Europe, where a whole new set of problems started to pop up. This wasn't just about day-to-day survival anymore. No, this was much deeper. It became a profound crisis of faith, and it raised questions that seemed absolutely impossible to answer. So in Europe, this unwritten, pretty brutal contract got formed. Jewish communities would handle things like managing property or making loans for the nobility, jobs that were forbidden to Christians. And in exchange for being economically useful, they were tolerated. But, and this is a huge but, they also became the permanent designated scapegoat. And this shows you just how terrible that deal really was. Anytime the economy went south, or a plague hit, or a scapegoat was needed for any reason, that contract was instantly broken. And it led to these horrific cycles of violence, persecution, and expulsion across the entire continent. The Spanish expulsion in 1492 was a particularly traumatic, devastating moment in this long history. All of this constant suffering created questions that just felt unsolvable. People were asking, why is it that other Jews can convert to Christianity or Islam and seem to be doing just fine, while we, the most loyal, are punished over and over? And after all these centuries of being faithful, where is the promised land? The silence they got back from God must have been absolutely deafening. Right into this void, into this moment of deep, deep despair, steps a man named Sabbatai Zevi. He shows up, declares himself the Messiah, and offers up a revolutionary new answer that would just ignite a movement across the entire globe. Zevi's message was totally electrifying. He basically argued that the problem wasn't the people's faith at all. It was the corrupt religious elite and all their rigid ancient laws. He preached this message of spiritual freedom and equality, a direct line to God that wasn't bogged down by old rules. But then he did something that confused everyone. He was confronted by the Ottoman Sultan and given an ultimatum, and he converted to Islam. Now, you'd think that would be the end of the movement, right? A betrayal? But his followers didn't see it that way. No, they saw it as the ultimate act of sacrifice, a holy mission to go undercover and redeem the souls of every Jew who had ever been forced to convert. Okay, so fast forward about 50 years, and this idea gets taken to a whole new level. A man named Jacob Frank comes on the scene, and he claims to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi. He said he was ready to take Zevi's radical ideas and push them all the way to their darkest, most logical conclusion. Frank just saw the world completely differently. He believed the world we live in, with all its laws and morals, wasn't created by a good God. He saw it as a prison, built by a false, evil God that he just called Satan. So his mission wasn't to obey the rules of the prison, it was to destroy it completely. And his method for spreading these ideas was brilliant. He didn't write dense theological books. He was a storyteller. He taught his philosophy through these simple, powerful parables, stories that would get embedded in his followers' minds like little seeds, completely reshaping how they saw reality itself. Take this one parable he told. There's a rich man who wants to test his friends, so he pretends he has a dead body in a chest and needs help getting rid of it. What do his friends do? They abandon him immediately. Frank's conclusion from this was simple. Humans are fundamentally selfish and evil. So trying to be good in a world run by an evil God isn't just naive, it's foolish. So the contrast here couldn't be more stark. On one hand, you've got Rabbinic Judaism, which says, obey God's laws to be a righteous person. On the other hand, you have Frankism, which says, this world is a prison run by a false god, and our holy mission is to defeat him by shattering every single one of his rules. And this leads us to his most shocking idea of all, justification by sin. Frank taught that the only way to show you had true faith was to intentionally break the laws of this false world. Every sin was an act of holy rebellion. Every broken law, he believed, helped speed up the end of this corrupt world and empowered the believer with forbidden knowledge. But Frank wasn't just offering some pie-in-the-sky philosophy. He gave his followers a very practical structure, a literal blueprint for a secret society that was designed to navigate and ultimately conquer the world as he believed it truly was. And that blueprint was built on a few key principles. First, a flat hierarchy. Everyone was loyal to him and him alone. Second, absolute love and devotion to each other, the group they called the company. They also had a relentless focus on achieving material success, money and power. And underpinning it all, total secrecy, total discipline, and using your brain, learning and argument to defeat your enemies, not violence.
But underneath all this practical stuff was a core mystical belief. Frank taught his followers that reality is basically a construct. It's an illusion, just a set of rules made up by other people. And if you understand that, if you can see the strings of the puppet show, you can break free. You don't have to be a pawn anymore. You can become a king.
The story of Jacob Frank and his followers is this strange hidden footnote in history. But it really leaves you with a pretty provocative question, doesn't it? How much of our world, how much of our history has been shaped not by the big events we all see, but by the secret societies and the radical ideas that are designed to operate in the shadows?